Starting this course on career counseling, it is extremely important to understand why you should take your career choice seriously. In this video, we will help you understand the importance of making the right career choice for yourself. So, why is your career choice so important? It is important because it determines a lot of things in your life, including number 1, quality of life. Your career choice plays a huge role in deciding where you live, how flexible your life is, and the kinds of things you are able to do in your free time. Number 2, identity. Ask any elder person about their career and they will tell you about it as a part of their identity. They'll say something like, I am a journalist, instead of, I report news. Notice how everybody asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And not, what do you want to do when you grow up? This shows that your career choice shapes your identity. Number 3, impact. Every human life touches thousands of other lives in so many different ways. If you select any 60-year-old person who is about to retire, take a time machine, find him as an infant, throw that infant into trash, and then come back to the present day, you'll find that a countless number of things around you have changed. So whatever career you choose, the world will be affected by it. Anything that determines your quality of life, your identity, and the impact that you make should be taken very seriously. And that includes your career choice also. So we hope that this short video could help you understand the importance of making the right career choice. Having done that, we will now move forward to start our career counseling course. We are pretty excited and we hope you are too. So let's begin. See you.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. सबको स्वागत है. Welcome to day 51 of ProBano's Live Podcast. And of course, we had a celebration yesterday. Now back to serious work today. So today, जैसे कि आप देख सकते हो कि we do not have a guest, but having Mr. Sen, I think that's enough for us. You know, he's been a guest for every day for the last 40 days. So as and Pragya is also with us today. She is in the call with us, and I hope she has some very insightful questions off stream, and I hope she asks them on stream today. So firstly, welcome all the audience members. Thank you for coming in. Mr. Sen, welcome. Pragya, welcome to you both. तो आज का टॉपिक जो है, I think it's one of the most discussed topics in the industry. That is life in a corporate sector, and how do you develop in that sector? How do you grow? And आज के लिए we'll treat it as a discussion, not exactly an interview, and try to have a conversation about how things work. So firstly, Mr. Sen has over 30 years of experience in the corporate sector. So I want to start off with him. Life in a corporate sector and the changes you've seen so far. Yeah, Mr. Sen.
Okay. I've got actually more than 35 years, I think, in the corporate world and in different types of corporates. So how and what's the good, bad, and ugly about the corporate world? I think that's what we want to discuss because there are going to be many people out there who would actually not take up entrepreneurship and go in for a corporate life or a proper job. So now, if we were to look at the corporate, so which is different than the government. So the government is basically a government job in a government department. The typical examples of a government job being in the administrative services, police service, or as a government teacher, or that's in the Union Grants Commission, and so on. So it's basically a government department that we're talking about. in a government job. But as a corporate job, it's everything else. So it could be a public sector undertaking, for example, like a sale or Indian Oil. So these are also corporate jobs because they function as a corporate. It could be a private sector job. So it could be a multinational private sector job. It could be a pure Indian company private sector job. Uh, so where do we start? The, we start
Okay,
with
Mr. Sen, I want to like maybe give you a direction. This is
right.
the one that I've heard most. I've heard like definitely anytime I read an article about the corporate sector or in a setting where the most common thing I hear is the politics, the internal politics that happen between the team and the hierarchy and whatnot. So I want to speak about that if you can.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, now what happens is in a typical corporate job, wherever you are, whether you're in a public sector undertaking and you have joined Air India or Indian Oil, or you have joined a multinational company like, for example, Hindustan Lever or something, or you have joined one of those companies which is family run, like a Reliance, and it's a family run company, or you have joined one of the IT companies, for like example, an Infosys or a TCS and so on and so forth. Or you have joined a, yeah, so we talked about the family. Now, each of them behave in a different way. So it's like, it's not one size fits all, but each of them behave in a different way. So the politics, so what, first of all, let's define what is politics. Politics happens when you have limited resources and many aspirants to get that resource. So you have limited resource and you have many people who want to get hold of that resource. And that's where the politics start. Now, if you understand that, then then the life becomes very simple. So we understand corporate politics source. Where does it come from? And this is something that's been there for ages and ages and ages. Right. Now, I think what a good place to start is when somebody joins a corporate or a company or whatever, doesn't matter in which area, you are assigned a certain department, a function. So someone may be assigned the human resource function. Someone may be assigned the marketing function. Someone may be assigned the production function. Someone may be assigned the accounting and finance function, and so on and so forth. Now, each of these functions or department, each of the functions are headed by someone at the top. So it will be the head of HR, head of finance, and then you have different designations for them. Somebody can be a CFO or a chief people officer, or it could be a finance manager and a human resource manager. It can be anything. So it doesn't matter. But basically, there's the guy who's the senior most in the function. And let's take, for example, give me any department you want to talk about. Choose.
Sales and marketing.
Good. So you have a sales and marketing guy who's the head of that function, right? So sometimes you might call him chief marketing officer, or you can call him business development manager. It can be anything, doesn't matter. Now, under this guy, the function is broken up into two. One is the marketing side, one is the sales side. So there you have only two places who can be the bosses of each. Now you see the pyramid. It gets very lonely at the top. So now you have somebody who's a head of marketing and a head of sales who's reporting to the head of both of these things. Now the marketing guy can have different departments under him, and it could be like by region. So they'll say south, north, east, west. So it'll be head of each of the region, or by product type. So if it's typically a electronics, fast-moving consumer item, so it'll be by product type. So TV is one product type. Music systems is another product types. Laptops and computers is the other. Mobile telephony is the other. So it could be either in the region or that. But if it's the region on top, then you'd have the product below the region. If the product is on top, you'll have the region below. It doesn't matter. Same thing with the sales. So sales can be also done in the same way, region-wise sales or product-wise, product line-wise. I'm keeping it very simple. It can get very complex. So now you see from one, we got two people. Now each of the two people have got four each. Each of the four has got another four each. Now we have got 16 people who are now going to go up and become that one guy, right? Now below the 16, you have your teams, which can be a factor of another, say, 4. So you have 64 in each of them. And they're all trying to go and at some point in life want to become that top guy in marketing and sales. So now you have one position, you have 128 guys running for that. Now this politics and rat race actually, I believe, starts in school. You didn't challenge me. Okay. Now, why I say it starts in school, because in school, we get into something called the rat race. We are always trying to be better than the other guy. We are always trying to be first in our class. And it's all because the good institutions that are there after school are very limited, and they have very limited number of intakes or seats. And so that's where there is a huge competition. So we are trained for that competition, and that goes in and it continues for the rest of our lives. So that's where the politics starts. So a young chap who's just getting into a job, say like Pragya or yourself, so you go in and it's all starry-eyed and all that sort of things, and you go and have a party. Yeah, I've got a job with the best company, the brand name, and so on and so forth. And the first few days it's like a honeymoon. You have a lot of training and you have a lot of fun, games, and so many things. And then suddenly a boss comes around and says, okay, I want this job done by tomorrow. Say, hello? Like, what do you mean? He said, no, I want it done by tomorrow. And that's when reality hits you. Because whoever your manager is, or whoever you're reporting to, even as a trainee, that person is competing with other managers to make an impression on their boss. And they have targets, they have performance numbers, and so on and so forth. And after some time, you get into it, and then you're meeting performance numbers throughout. And that's when it starts, like you start cribbing about your boss. You start cribbing about your job. You say, man, this is not fair. Because at the end of the day, we are human beings. We have a life, right? We want to live. And that's what happens. And that's when the politics starts. Then you have another team who's working in another department who starts to make themselves look better. You start pointing at the other person. And that's politics, isn't it? When you start pointing fingers at each other and you say, like, they haven't done this, I've done this, so that sort of a thing. Because you're all competing for that limited space on top of the pyramid. That's where it starts. Is it true for all companies? Yes and no. It's yes and no. So companies which are based on, for example, if it's a manufacturing company, whatever be the manufacturer, it could be a car manufacturer or a TV manufacturer anywhere. So the politics starts between production and marketing and sales. So marketing and sales will start saying, I cannot sell because the guys are not producing the right thing. And the guys who are in the production will say, I don't know what to produce. The marketing guy has to tell me what to produce. And there you start. And it goes all the way down to the bottom from the top. Well, actually, none of them have been able to meet their targets or the performance that has been set. Now, needless to say, all those performances are basically very theoretical, and it cannot be met. And corporate, even if it's a public sector undertaking, even if it's like an Air India or an ONGC, they will have to answer to their owners, which is the shareholder. And we know that. We keep complaining about Air India. They're making so much of loss. Sell it off. Like those guys are useless. So we are the owners of Air India, right? Supposed to be. And we make a lot of noise about Air India. And the poor guys who are working in Air India, they get the brunt of whatever noise we make. So it's the shareholders' expectation which actually drives the whole thing downwards. Family-run business is got a different shade of it. Public sector undertakings have a different shade. IT companies have yet another shade. So it's all there, but fundamentally, this is where it stems down from. Does that help?
Sen, what you said about the rat race and trying to get into the best colleges in India, abroad. Okay, for now, let's just talk about India. Within India, there's a statistic. Out of there's approximately 14 to 15 lakh students in India every year that apply for the NEET exam. The NEET exam makes you eligible, to get into a medical school, medical college.
And how many seats
and
are
out
there?
Of the 15 lakhs, there are the seats are limited to 40 to 60,000.
So there you go.
There you go. That's the rat race right there.
Okay. So there
Engineer
you have it.
And you can pay crores of rupees, go abroad, and then even after you come back, you still have to give a next exam,
Right.
national exit.
Rat race has got so much into our blood that even when we want to hail a taxi or a public transport, we get into the rat race. We push people out to get in front.
Now, I've traveled in the Delhi metro at Rajiv Chowk station. I know what you're saying.
That's it. We have forgotten the art of being patient and waiting our turn. Because we always feel that we'll miss the bus. Literally, we'll miss the bus.
Mr. Sen, before I get to there's a couple of audience questions. Before I get to that, one thing I was thinking is, abhi ek trend chal raha hai. I would say it's a positive trend. I mean, we are getting to a better place, but then the trend is focus on mental health. That's the talking point in the industry, where आप जो भी काम करवा रहे हो, you have to make sure that आपके employees का mental health सही place पे है. If that is enabled, I think you're doing a good job. It's kind of become a single point criteria where you judge if a company is good or not. The sales and the finances and the revenue and whatnot, they are there, but I think from a public point of view, as a PR, so what do you think about that? Like, are they just treating it as a means to have a good PR, or is there any good changes actually happening for the betterment of the mental health of the employees?
Okay, so first, the mental health of all the employees is very important, because the mental health affects your emotional stage, and the emotional health will affect your physical health. And we know by the age, the mid-30s, people get diagnosed with all sorts of diseases that shouldn't be there, like diabetes and hypertension and so on and so forth. And it all starts with the mental stress, which feeds into the emotional stress, which feeds into the physical manifestation of that. Now, so the mental stress we talked about, and it comes from there. It's unreasonable performance targets that people have to meet, and the way the pay structure gets structured is people are expected to have a variable pay. So that variable pay will be dependent on a person meeting or not meeting a target. So you can imagine what it does to a person. It's like the person will do anything to meet that target so that the person can get that extra variable pay. And that's where I think the whole thing is wrong. What we are doing is we are setting something and we are paying, we are rewarding. We are rewarding, at most of the times, we are rewarding lack of integrity. So because you'll do hook up by crook, you'll get to the target. You might even fudge your target numbers, actual numbers. Or you may come up and give false statements. You may actually spoil somebody else's chance to get that done. So it's basically you're playing with the integrity of a person because you're rewarding something which is a variable that's out there which people will want to attend. And in fact, all the industries now have that sort of a pay, which I think is counterproductive. You're tying it with pay, it's very counterproductive. Now, that creates a lot of mental stress. So at a very junior level, you would not have it. But at a mid, after 3, 4, 5 years of experience, you'll start having that. So it can be anything between 20% to 40 to 50%. And what people will do is they'll do anything to get that extra because they know that fixed pay is going to come to my bank account no matter what. But the variable can be more or less every month. And they want to hit the target every month on month. That's when the stress starts coming in. Instead of working that 8 hours or whatever, 9 hours, they'd end up working 13, 14, 15 hours a day just to make sure they get that extra money. What it does, it feeds the emotional stress off from there, and it reflects in your health. And we know of cases, people in the 35 to 40, they have got diabetes, they've got hypertension, they've got cholesterol, they've got so many things. They keep putting on weight. Putting on weight is a sure sign of stress. So that to give a release to that, you need this, as you called it, you need this sort of counseling so that goes up. We started this when I was in India. We started this way back in 1994, 95. We didn't call it counseling, we call it mentoring. So we said that every employee at a junior level will have a mentor who is not the boss. Because the maximum stress comes from your boss. Actually, not maximum. All the stress comes from your boss. If you're lucky to get a very good boss, you're going to have the most beautiful time in your life. Corporate notwithstanding. If you get, and that would be less than 1%. And if you get a difficult boss, then that's it. Life is miserable. And you're going to get tensed up, you're going to get into. That's where you need a mentor or a counselor who can guide you through that process of how to deal with that stress. It's required. Now, I do know that the people are giving it a headline and all that thing, but it is a requirement. It is, I mean, we'll see so many people who finish off their careers before they're 40. At 45, they are become gray hair and old looking and, it's like, come on, you have seen it, right?
And 40, if you look at the few people who are doing what they love and they're at the age of 35, between 35 to 45, and they look like they're in the prime of their life. But then on the same hand, when you look at few people who are at like 35, 40, कि बाल उड़ गया, पेट आ गया, like काम चल रहा है.
Exactly, because they are so stressed out. They have, spoiled their own health. So I think that you call it mentorship, you call it counseling. It's actually wellness. It's the wellness of the mind, it's body, mind, and emotional state. And it's got nothing to do with meditation. It's got nothing to do. It's got everything to do with how you cope with the stress of the work.
Uh,
It's
and
real. It's real numbers.
right. And Mr. Sen, I want to give an example. As in, I'm sure Aditya dekh raha, I can see like he's liking and reacting to all the comments. So behind the scenes, Aditya dekh raha.
He's in the
And we had this
shadows.
discussion. Yeah, he's in the shadows. I think he just got done with his class with another batch.
Okay.
So we had this conversation where abhi ke liye, while we are working from home, our work thoda fluctuate kar raha hai from morning to evening. So it's like from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., 12 straight hours with lunch break and necessary breaks and whatever. But having said that, मैंने आदित्य को बोल दिया कि if you end up whatever meetings after 10 p.m. नींद तो 6 घंटे ही है. If Arnold needs only 6 hours of sleep, pretty sure all of the rest of us can do with 6 hours of sleep. That's a given.
I cannot do with less than 9.
I mean, I'll wake up cranky after 6 hours, but अगर 1 घंटा का break है, then can continue with the task. But then I think there's a balance where, like you said, ज़्यादातर tension boss की तरफ से आता है. When he keeps pushing you and riding on you and riding on you.
No, I think it's not only keep pushing. The boss can be abusive.
Right.
The boss can be downright abusive and can, scream at you in front of everyone, shout, get angry, throw things around. It happens. It's there, and you must have heard stories about it.
Well, definitely. So the thing is,
the reason why that guy behaves that way is because he's stressed out.
ऊपर से आ रहा है कि okay, where are the numbers?
Exactly.
Right. So the story I was getting at, I told Aditya, okay, after 9 p.m. or 10 p.m., whatever, I'll have my sleep, I'll balance it out. But between, again, the 12 hours that I get after 10 p.m. to 10 a.m., no contact, no messaging, no calls whatsoever. Even if there's an emergency meeting, I won't come because वो मेरा personal time है. If you're pushing it beyond that, then you're getting into my personal life and फिर वो balance miss हो जाएगा. So and he respects that. And I respect him for understanding that, okay, there's a thing called a personal life and a professional life. Or maybe if you need a break, nowadays you're working 7 days a week, but then that's sometimes a good thing that keeps you focused if you have nothing else to do. But then if you need that break, take that break. And I think people who have, those who have people working under them, I think it's a responsibility where you understand that people need their time and space. So give it to them. Monday वापस आओ. Let's get this started again. Monday, whatever. I mean, whichever day you're coming back. And I think respect the private life of an individual. I want this report tomorrow. Okay. But कल ही चाहिए तो भाई, understand that सबके family भी होते हैं and they have whatever other commitments and whatnot.
Pragya's got some questions, I think.
She definitely has. Yes, I was going to divert to her.
Yes. So I completely agree with the fact, the importance of maintaining a work-life balance, having that distance, I think, from your workplace, be it corporate or anything. And about mental health in corporate. So, in light of that, Mr. Sen, what do you think is the role of HR in this? I mean, as far as I know, in India, corporates, they don't, the HR isn't, I guess, that well flourished in a lot of corporates. Or maybe it's not paid that much attention to as we hear they are given attention to in, in the Western countries. So what do you think would be the, how does HR come into this whole thing? How important is the role, especially in regard with mental health of employees in a corporate?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Now, let's look at the role of the HR function. The HR function. It historically, traditionally has got 4 R's. So what are the 4 R's? They do recruitment, that's an R. They do retraining, So that means they retrain the people, because people come in with a certain skill set, right? So the HR organizes training to put them into the skill set that's required for the job. They do reward. So they look at the reward process, which will include the number of days of leave and so on and so forth and everything. Because leave is actually translated into money. Take leave, that's money. And the fourth one is very interesting, is they retire. That's the 4 R's traditionally that they do. And as you can see in the 4 R, this mentoring or counseling is not there. And I'll give you a thing from the medical world, because I was in the medical board for a couple of years. So in the medical board, there used to be something called a wellness section. So a wellness section is typically to deal with this, the stress at work. Because the junior doctors, the doctors who are actually studying, and that's what the medical board does to look after, the super specialty training. So this junior doctors, they are exposed to highly traumatic situations. And you can imagine what sort of trauma they are exposed to. It hits them mentally very hard. So that's when they come to the wellness, and their bosses are typical. They'll say, no, you have to do this. I don't care if you're working 96 hours at a stretch, which they do sometimes. So they come to the wellness and they're counseled what to do, how to do, what is a better way to look at things and all that. And you will not believe it, in spite of all that, there's a high percentage of dropout among super specialty doctors studying. They just can't handle that pressure. They're humans, right? At the end of the day. So they have a very structured wellness section where people go through a certain process, and you can self-nominate yourself for a wellness section. So it's nothing. You just go and talk to someone, and talk to that person, cry with the person perhaps, and say, what happened and all that. I used to have so many young doctors come to me and sit down and on the verge of crying. What did I do? I just listened, nothing else. That's it. They just need someone to listen to you. And that takes away most of the tension. So I do think, that sort of a function is required in today's world where we are running all the time.
That absolutely answers my question. That makes sense because, especially going on from here, I think it's going to be much more difficult in a corporate world. It's going to be more pressure. So this kind of function definitely would be something that really helps the whole corporate structure, all the employees.
Correct. I mean, some people call it a mindfulness section. Some people call it a wellness section. Some people you can call it anything, depending on how you want to brand it. But of late, in the last 10, 15 years, this has become a sort of a necessity, given the way the world is evolving and moving at a very fast pace. But I can give you a very simple answer to that, how you can do it without a wellness section. If your office timing is 9 hours, then you work for 8 hours. 1 hour, you get yourself knowledge. I mean, you accumulate knowledge. So you that 1 hour extra that you do, you sort of you read about other stuff, you read about things, read about other projects, get learn how other people have done something. So set aside a certain amount of time to learn. And the other thing is, try not to work beyond the 9 hours. I never did in my life.
And actually, I remember a story. I don't remember if this was on the stream or off stream, where Mr. Sen mentioned the point where he had to travel between two cities.
Okay, I'll tell that
And,
story. It was off stream, so I'll
yeah.
tell that story.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to ruin it.
I'll come to that story afterwards. I mean, we have not seen what the audience had to say on this thing.
राइट तो अनीता जी का एक कमेंट आया था कि आई फील 9 out of 10 people follow the rat race and even when they feel bad about unnecessary pressure they don't oppose. If I can add मतलब कि if I can justify, if I look at it from that person point of view, if I can justify it, the need to make money or the need to have a livelihood trumps their mental health in that way. It's like a desperate times, desperate measure kind of thing. But I think, if I want to kind of get into a quote, I would say, let's see, let me remember this. Tough times make tough men, and tough men make good times make weak men, and then weak men make tough times, and that's a cycle.
I just want to react to that. In the world, there is only one capitalist country, which is the United States. Right? There's only one country. In the United States, other than the Indians who go there, no one works beyond the scheduled time. No one. If office finishes at 5, at 5:05, you'll find the office empty. You'll find one guy, you go and look at his face and you'll say, this guy's an Indian. He is there. But they just don't. But what they do, if the office starts at 8 or I don't know, whatever time it starts, 9 o'clock, they'll be in the office dot at 9. Maybe even 2 minutes before 9, they will work dedicatedly till 5 o'clock. They will not chit chat. They will not do anything of that, which we do. What we do in office is we chit chat. We spend time talking to each other, gaffe marte hai, bahut kuch karte hai. And by the time that 5 o'clock or whatever time comes along, we have not done what we are supposed to have done, right? And then we stay back. That, I think, is a big difference.
Right. एक क्वेश्चन तो था ऑडियंस का, and I think this goes back to your the very first podcast, that is episode 2. So Pushkar Das, and I think there's a question by Pavan KVPS as well. Let's see. Pushkar says, Mr. Sen, could you discuss more about Industry Revolution 4.0, which you discussed on your first day on the podcast? And then Pavan says, kindly give your valuable suggestions on Industry Revolution 4.0 for fresher under any graduate qualifications point of view.
Okay. Now, what is Industrial Revolution 4.0? So what was Industrial Revolution 3.0, 2.0, and 1.0? That's how it came to 4.0. So the 1.0 was the 17th century, 16th century, where everybody got colonized and all that sort of thing started happening. 2.0 was the manufacturing thing that started off after the Second World War, actually before the Second World War, between the two wars, with the advent of the automobile and and the manufacturing assembly line. So that's when the assembly line came in place. So the whole of the 1900, I mean, the 20th century, was the 2.0.
And one thing I just want to add, that is right before the Second World War, or during from the duration of the First World War, we tapped into quantum mechanics.
Yeah. So all those things came up at that time.
And that's what gave a boom to what we are today.
Correct. So during that period, a lot of things were discovered and invented, including electricity, telephone, a whole bunch of stuff, right? Then we moved beyond that, late 90s, early 2000, would be that Industry 3.0, but it's more of the information revolution. That's when information took over and you have all this, the boom of the IT that happened. So the software part and the hardware part and more of the software took over. And then we moved very quickly, rapidly in the last 20 years or so, very rapidly. And now, I mean, even 5 years ago, you did not have social media the way you have it now. That's the rate of change that's happening. So now we are poised, according to the theorists, to move into the fourth generation of industrial revolution. So what is the fourth revolution? What are the ingredients? So fourth generation is basically machines and humans, and where you find a balance between the two. So the ingredients of 4.0 are at a hardware level, at a hard level, are sensors. So you have sensors and you have GPS tracking and all that. You have drones, these are at the hardware level. Then you have communication. So communication because telephony has taken a lot of, has made a lot of progress. And today now we've got 4G, which is a fourth generation of telephony. And fourth generation of telephony allows you quite high speeds of data download and upload. But there is the next generation, which you all must have heard of, which is 5G. Now, 5G gives you insane level of speeds for upload and download. Insane. We're talking like gigabits per second. Okay. It talks about IoT, Internet of Things. So what is Internet of Things? Is basically how you're bridging the human and the machine, or the physical. Let's put it physical. So it can be a smart building. So what is a smart building? A smart building is, a very simple example will be, you walk in, the lights will come on. You walk out, the lights will go away. Motion sensing. So you have a sensor inbuilt in it. So if there is a movement, the sensor picks it up, transmits the information through an IoT platform to the circuit that is controlling the electricity, and it puts it on or off, whatever be the case. So that's a very simple way of looking at it. Then you have data. So you have a humongous amount of data being created now. And then, so that has given rise to what is called as the big data analytics. Now, in the information era, which was just prior to this, there was a lot of data, and people used to make information sense out of it. That's why it was called information technology, by the way. And what the information was used for was, the typical ERPs, the enterprise resource planning systems, like SAPs and Oracles and all that, very, very common names. And they used to handle information, and they used to transact day-to-day transactions. But now it's going to be data, and the data is going to be used for to predict what's going to happen in the future. So it's going to predict the behavior of a customer, perhaps, or a patient, or whoever. This is done through AI, which we call artificial intelligence, so which learns. So the artificial intelligence can be a software robot, or it can be a hardware robot. It's a robot, so you can have a software robot which learns and optimizes your processes the way you do work, or it's a hardware robot which will pick up, and that's what we call machine learning. So that's artificial intelligence. And to do prediction, and remember Mr. Sodhi was on the show some time back, if you remember.
Mr. Rajesh Sodhi.
Correct. And he talked about artificial intelligence, and that he was making an app that will recognize your face and your taste, and he'll tell the shopkeeper, oh, this guy is around. So, you get a prompt that today's special menu is whatever it is, right? So that's artificial intelligence and machine learning. And what they do is edge computing. That means it does not go back to the main computer. It's the computing and coming up with a result with that computation is done then and there in real time at an edge. So that's why it's called edge computing. So all of this put together is Industry 4.0. Now, Industry 4.0 has given rise to Factory 4.0, smart buildings, supply chain 4.0. Supply chain is, how you get materials into your home from wherever. Warehouse 4.0. So everything's got education 4.0. And what I do expect is, given this pandemic of COVID, see, 4.0 will not happen fully because 5G is still not tested properly. And also it apparently has some health issues. The radio waves, the frequencies can affect health. So that's not yet proven. So we'll still be stuck with 4G. And that's a telephony discussion, which, it's a long discussion. We can have it some other time. Well, I used to be a telecom regulator, so yeah, okay. But there would be a lot of adaptation, and we would be somewhere moving towards what we call Industry 4.0. And I believe a lot of it will happen in places like agriculture, like in healthcare. And in healthcare, actually, I wanted to do something with the radiology department. So the radiology department are the people who go and take your X-ray in a very simple form. They take your X-ray and then, they look at it and they say, okay, you've got a broken bone or you don't have a broken bone. But now if a doctor does that 100 times a day, there's fatigue. There's a certain amount of fatigue that sets in and the doctor makes errors, human. So that same thing of scanning the report of image scanning can be done through an AI and that Industry 4.0 techniques can be used there. So I had floated that idea in the medical board. It went along pretty well. And then the radiology department doctors came after me with a hammer and they wanted to beat me up. I said, okay, back off. But the places where I see it is going to take place is in education, healthcare, and agriculture. And agriculture, again, I think Mr. Sodhi only talked about. So, with the sensor at the farmer's place, the farmer will have accurate information at the soil condition, about the weather condition, when it's going to rain, and all that sort of things. And then it can also be, the data can be done in such a way, it can go to the wholesale buyer, in this case, our Food Corporation of India, who buys all the stuff from the farmers, most of it actually. So they will know when to come in and send in their stuff to buy it. And we have such a huge amount of loss of food grains, which are wasted. It's unimaginable, it's criminal, the amount of food grain that India wastes. Because they don't have the information to pick it up from the farmers, or they don't have information about how much is stored, how much is getting bad, rotten, and all that sort of thing. So there will be some applications, but I don't think Industry 4.0 is going to be full-fledged. And guys, don't need to worry, it will not replace human beings.
And as for the one thing you mentioned, the rice grains, and we are in a position, or at least, we are importing rice from Vietnam. Even a little bit. So, like, even being one of the greatest agricultural lands in the world, we are still importing. So, kahi to galat chal raha hai. And I think probably we need to get back to that.
Yeah,
get back to roots, really, literally.
Because there's a lack of information, lack of data flow that's happening. So these sort of data flows can be bridged, so that you can take better decisions, quicker decisions.
Right.
So that was Industry 4.0 in a layman's language.
So I can't give as full-fledged answer as Mr. Sen, but I can, Pawan, if you're still here, I can give you 3 points that I learned personally, being the very limited time that I've been in the industry. Not Industry 4.0 technically, but I've been working for over 1 year. I'll give you 3 points that I feel I needed to build in myself to be relevant in whatever it is that I do. Is one, rational thinking. It's not logical, it's not critical, but rational thinking. That's one. And then adaptability. How well you adjust to situations and how well you mold yourself to be relevant in the market. And thirdly, speaking skills. And speaking skills, I'm not saying कि भाई speech बनाओ हजारों लोगों के सामने. I'm saying interpersonal skills. interpersonal skills, how you talk to people one on one, or how you talk to people at a very at a personal level. I think that's what matters. If you can't speak in a public, okay, you can still work. But if you can't speak to a person, that's an issue that I think it's a major issue. Uh, and I think this is in one last question I want to touch upon, which I guess is another problem. And this time I'm not going to blame the companies, but this time I'm going to blame the employees. Okay, trying to play the devil's advocate right now. Uh, get some flack, maybe, I don't know. So when we look at from an employee's point of view, like you said, when you make money, the only variable that acts as a motivator for you to do better, that's not a good thing. And we've talked about this a lot in previous podcasts. I can't specify which one. There is a lack of a vision for an employee, and a lack of a vision where they do not have a purpose of exactly what they're doing in the place that they're working at. A greater purpose as to, okay, what is it that I am doing that is contributing to eventually 1 year down the line or 6 months down the line. Okay, I'm doing a 3-month project. I have to relocate to a different city. Okay, how is it helping people? How is it helping indirectly or directly helping people? Now, I came to the education industry with a personal grudge, to say the least, where I needed more practical education and I did not get that. And I want to get into the industry to change that. And ProBano is a means to get there. ProBano is a tool where I can use the platform to impart skill education through our programs and whatnot. We already have started, and it's a means to impart skill education, and it's a process. It's not like college se nikalte, you become the education minister. That would be stretching a little bit, but to get there, you need to find a purpose of exactly where you're heading towards, and then what are the tools you're using right now to get there. Mr. Sen and Pragya, दोनों का सुनना चाहता हूँ मैं. Firstly, Pragya.
So yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that because I think for say if we're talking about the corporate scenario specifically, I think it's very important for employees to have that connect with the organization, that they should know ki, yeah, this is what the company is aiming at. This is what my work. This is how my work is going to affect the overall outcome of the team and of the company. I think that's very, very important because not only is that good for the company, but it is also something that makes the person find something meaningful in the job that they're doing. So be it corporate or working in a startup or anywhere else, I think you need to find that sense of purpose and find meaning, not only just in your personal life but also in the professional life. It's important to have that connect with the vision of the people that you're working with. So absolutely, I agree with that, Mr. Sen.
Okay, I want to. Sorry. I want to put up a quote by Anugrah, who we had as a guest on the 49, who said, "Find a purpose in life. Without purpose, life has no meaning." And I think if you put money as your purpose, एक point के बाद you're not gonna earn more than what you have done. So if you go up the ladder, and I think if you have a purpose, you reach your vision, you accomplish that, and you realize, okay, there's something beyond that. Or I did it at a district level, okay, state level, did it at a state level, okay, zonal level, did it at a zonal level, okay, national level, and then international level. I don't know. I think there's levels to go beyond if you have a vision, but then monetary, there's never going to you're going to reach a plateau where the graph isn't going to go upwards. Mr. Sen?
Okay, I think I spoke about this yesterday when you asked about, in a startup, how do you make a team and retain a team? You had a question yesterday. It's actually the same thing. What is a startup and what is a corporate? It's the same thing. A startup is starting now. A corporate started sometime. They both started. It's just that the corporate has hindsight of experience. That's about it. Now, when we go in for a job, whenever it is, at a late age, at an early age, at the first job, whatever, Even when you go to study, what happens is you don't know much about the organization, right? The organization doesn't know much about you, correct? But you yourself, you know about yourself, hopefully,
Yeah.
and you know about what skills you have. And you obviously have faith in yourself and the skills. So you go and you sit in an interview. So in a sort of a half an hour or at best one day, the company decides you're the best fit and you decide the company is the best for me. And we all know that is never happens in real life. It takes time, right? So what we do is we take a leap of faith. We believe what the company is telling us, and the company believes what we tell the company. So it's an equation of faith between yourself and the company. So it's a reciprocal faith. And there is a third part to this. So the company has faith in you as a person, and you have the faith in the organization as an organization, and you have faith in your skills, and the company has faith in your skills. Which means the company says, okay, this guy is saying I have these skills, and they can do a test and all that, and they say that, okay, I believe the guy has the test. I believe the person has the skills. So there's a faith put into that. And you yourself, you know that you have the skills and you have faith in your skills. So that's a sort of an equilateral triangle you have. It's all based on faith. You don't have any more information to go with it. It's like you're getting into a marriage. It's based purely on faith, right? What then happens is, if you did not build it on faith, that relationship, then you immediately get frustrated. And I have seen people, and I was mentoring quite a few other guys, they are leaving jobs in 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, and like jobs are being changed. So what happens is, when this faith, triangle of faith, is disturbed, so the day you know that I cannot trust the organization anymore, or the organization feels that this person cannot be trusted, there's a faith, lack of faith, or his skills are not up to whatever it is, there's a lack of faith, you will know, company will know, that's the time you move on. But till such time, you build the faith. It's a conscious, deliberate act of building faith. Like a relationship just doesn't, you just don't fall in love, right? I mean, it builds. It builds up slowly over a certain period of time, right? That's how it happens. It's not like a switch on and off. So you have to give yourself time to build that faith with the organization, and the organization will have to give you that time. And all of that is based on the foundation of the organization's purpose. Now, you may be at a very early stage in your life or in your career to understand your own purpose. But what will invariably happen is a company's purpose might appeal to you. When that appeals to you, you will make that extra effort to build that faith. So it all depends on the faith. Now, does an employee give enough time to build the faith or not? That is something the employee must work at. If the employee doesn't work at doing that, then the employee will get into a frustrated being within a very short time and look for another job. And then the same story will get repeated. And I can give you so many instances, and you know it. People who are leaving jobs in 1 year, less than a year, and within 5 years, they've changed 7 jobs. It's all because, they're getting frustrated. It's not the money, and they're changing jobs for 500 rupees, 1,000 rupees extra. Doesn't make sense. But the time to build that faith has to be given. You have to invest the time. So from an employee point of view, You're investing three things. You're investing your skills. So you have to keep your skills always sharpened so that it's not, like blunted. You're investing not your time, your skills, by the way. You're investing faith. You're investing faith, if that makes sense to you. And you're trusting the purpose of the organization. So that is the minimum amount of investment an employee must make. The organization must also make an investment in putting a faith in you. So they're not going to invest in you. It is very expensive to recruit someone, by the way. It's extremely expensive to recruit someone. It's roughly 6 months of effort. And the moment you put money on that 6 months effort, it's a lot of money. So even if you take 20,000 rupees a month, that's 1,20,000 to recruit a person. And you're recruiting 10 persons, multiply by the 10, you have a number. So the company is also investing faith in you. Company is investing in your skills, staying sharpened. That's why they do the trainings. They send you on trainings. Right? And the company also invests in your potential to grow. So there's an investment from both the sides. And in both the sides, money is not an equation, part of the equation. Money is a symptom. Coronavirus, you have fever, go check. Money is the symptom. And what we do is we try to treat the symptom because we don't get to the core. So guys, you have to invest. Organization has to invest. Then only it will happen.
Mr. Sen, before we end, could you tell the story about your mental health and the traveling between the cities?
Okay, when you look at me, do you think that I'm mentally calm and happy?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, okay, I'll say this. Even if you aren't, you look like that, and that oozes positivity. So there you go.
Okay. One thing which I always did as non-negotiable is I never worked beyond a certain time. It started when I was in school. I never studied beyond 9 o'clock at night. That's it. Period, full stop. Never did. And it continued. So whenever the office time got over, I used to not work. But there would be instances, to be very truthful, there would be instances where you had to get some things done. Now, there was a time when I was traveling. So my family used to live in Dubai and my work was in Riyadh. So Riyadh is in Saudi Arabia, Dubai is in Dubai. Okay. Now, the flight time was 1.5 hours, 1 hour, 20 minutes. So the company used to fund me to come back every weekend. So in those days, the weekend was Thursday and Friday over there. And there was a flight out of Riyadh at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we used to pre-book our flights on the 3 o'clock flight every Wednesday. To catch the flight, we had to reach the airport at 2:30. Otherwise, we'll miss the flight. So we had to leave the office at, say, around 1:45. Then, you have the immigration and you have the security check to go through. And it was fast anyway. And every Friday, we used to board a flight at 6:30 in the evening to go back to work. So that was a routine for 3 years, week after week. Now, the people came to know that on Wednesday, this guy goes home, leaves the office at 1:30. So there was lunch at 1 or whatever. Lunch, finish, and I'm off. Catch a cab and go. Or take the car, park it in the airport and go. It went up to the chairman of the board of directors of that company, which was the telecom company in Saudi Arabia. And I think half of that board member were from the royal family. So all of them knew that if we have to have a meeting, it will not be Wednesday. This guy will refuse. And I used to refuse. Wednesday, no, I'm not available. Because when you get into a meeting with this sort of people, you don't know when the meeting is going to finish. And I'm not going to take a chance on that. Because my family, my wife and my kid was in Dubai. It was so non-negotiable that everybody knew about it. And they accepted it. That's how you do it. You draw the line. You have to practice drawing your line, your Lakshman Rekha, and make sure you stay within that line. It's your duty to do it. If you can do it, I guarantee you, other people will accept it. They might make fun of you. They might joke, but after some time, they'll start respecting you. And that's what's going to count. You have to be true to yourself. Set your own boundaries, stick to it. Don't negotiate.
There you go. I'm not going to add anything to that. So thank you, everyone. Anita ji, Pawan, Pushkar Das, and Shikaji, everybody was here. Thank you so much for watching our podcast. I hope you have a good day. Thank you, Mr. Sen and Pragya. So stay home, stay safe, wash your hands, and like and follow our page to get notified. Like and follow our page and turn on post notifications to get notified when we do go live. And see you on the next podcast with another guest. आज का guest नहीं था. Mr. Sen was a special guest today. So see you on the next podcast. Take care now. Bye bye. See you.